Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business experts and real estate leaders. Some past guests on the Same Day Podcast have been Corbin Marcotte, who's a wholesaler, real estate investor, agent, and more. Listen to that if you want to listen to his experience buying real estate. I think he bought his first house at like 16 or 17. So some inspiring stuff there. Sean Prince is an investor of Keyrenters. He's learned a bunch of great lessons in entrepreneurship and real estate investing. He talks about that on the podcast that he was on. Today's episode is brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. Listen, Mandi, even though it seems counterintuitive for a guy like me that is a full-time, I have a full-time job in essence, right? I mean, I run this business, but it's like a full-time deal. I don't have time to mess around with construction and renovation, even though it's kind of what we do. I want to invest in real estate, but because I've got a full-time job, Keyrenter is actually the perfect solution for me. I bought a house at an auction recently, and it was, in total disrepair. I walked it with Seth Rice, who's our general contractor, and now he's doing the work. He's bid it out. He's got contractors that are fixing it up. It's going to be a beautiful new property, mostly new property. We've taken down a bunch of walls, and we've redone the kitchen and the bathrooms and everything else. It's going to be super nice. And then it'll just get thrown into the pipeline along with every other property that we manage to get it leased, and then, collect rent. That rent will pay for the mortgage and spit off a little bit of cash flow every month. And that's how it happens. That's how you buy one house and then 10 and then 20 and then 30. So it doesn't matter what rental you have, single family homes, condos, townhomes, apartments. We have the management solutions and the renovation solutions that you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com if that interests you. I want to thank Luke Scuddo of the Equality Business Alliance for actually making the first connection between us, Mandi. And then Mike Bosch and Ross Heyman. Mike Bosch, of course, of Atento Capital, has been on the podcast. He has a ton of great stories about entrepreneurship. He started at such a young age and was running all these coffee bean and tea leaf stores, and it has just a great entrepreneurial history. And then Ross Heyman over at Capital Homes, who's David Charney's chief of staff, of course. But Luke was actually the first person that connected us. The EBA, he's of the Equality Business Alliance, and the EBA exists to strengthen LGBTQ plus welcoming businesses in the Tulsa community by doing a bunch of great networking stuff and outreach in the community. So if you want to learn more about that, we're a member of the EBA. And I'd encourage other business owners to also be members of the EBA. If you want to find out more, go to okeq.org/equality-business alliance. And OKEQ is Oklahoma Center for Equality, which is over there where like behind me at like 6th and Elgin type of deal, 5th and Elgin, right? And they do a bunch of programming and other cool stuff. Now on to Mandi, who's our guest today. Mandi is a director for Tulsa for Venture for America, a 2-year fellowship program for aspiring entrepreneurs. And I think it's all around the country. She's obviously the director of Tulsa, and we're so happy to have her here. She, Mandi, like me, was born and raised in the great state of Texas. And she moved to Tulsa in 2020 and immediately fell in love with the city and its people. So we share that in common. She joined VFA after spending 8 years working at the University of Texas at Austin, where she supported students and faculty in their career research and entrepreneurial endeavors. Mandi's passionate about economic development through truly inclusive and diverse entrepreneurship and is excited to lead this work in her new hometown. Mandi, thank you for being on. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I love that. Where were you actually born in Texas?
I was born in Arlington, outside Fort Worth.
Yeah, so not so far.
Yeah, and then moved to Austin for school, and that is a town that just really sucks you in. So I was there for 15 years before moving to Tulsa. Wow.
I remember going to, and I was born and raised in Houston. We used to go to University of Texas at Austin in high school when we were pretending that we were, of age and in the fraternity and everything else. I remember going to spend lots of time partying in that great town. Great food, great people, great energy, great music. And they beat us for the Tesla bid.
They sure did. Unfortunately for Tulsa.
But again, Mike Bosch, the center of everything Tulsa, it seems, put together that Big Effin' Field website. That was a pretty, I mean, that was a nice little viral campaign to get some visibility for our fair town. And that bid was ultimately unsuccessful, but pretty cool in the meantime.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Fun fact, our current, for the Chamber of Commerce VP for Economic Development, we recruited, he was the one who led the Austin campaign for bringing Tesla to Austin. And then we promptly stole him to Tulsa. So I think even though we didn't get Tesla, we are bound to get some pretty exciting things coming our way because we've got the man who led the charge there.
That's awesome. A little bit of poaching never hurt.
Right.
That's great. Tell us about VFA. Tell us what's going on. I want to ask a bunch of questions about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But before we do that, tell us just a little bit about VFA.
Yeah. So VFA has been around for 10 years. We started out in cities like Detroit and Philadelphia, but really our mission is to launch in cities that have early stage entrepreneurial ecosystems that need early career talent and have an opportunity for early career talent to come in, make a difference, and have an impact. So we recruit recent college grads from around the country who have a drive to be entrepreneurs and founders themselves. And then through an apprenticeship type experience, by placing them with startups in our 13 different cities like Tulsa, they get that hands-on experience on what it's like to work for a startup, see how it grows and it scales, to equip them to go on and become founders themselves. So during the 2 years of the fellowship, the fellows have a ton of professional development and training that we invest in each fellow. And then after they graduate from the program, we have investment funds, an accelerator, a huge alumni network, just a ton of resources to continue supporting that fellow through their entrepreneurship journey.
So actually, even though VFA is trying to place fellows and those fellows need to be paid a salary, you're actually getting an employee and a half. Because they're getting on the side all sorts of training that you may be doing in your organization already, but may not be doing. And so they're going to be better positioned, better equipped for doing what they're doing. And I assume that a lot of that stuff is just the basics. I mean, this is the first job out of college where you learn how to write a professional email, where you learn how to this is what a PowerPoint slide is, and this is how you form clarity of thought and put it onto a presentation. I mean, some of that stuff is probably not being done so well in terms of training in organizations. And I imagine that VFA does, certainly a portion of that training. So you're getting not just one person, but you're getting one person plus the entirety of the VFA mission backing you behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. Like the very first thing our fellows go through is called training camp. It's 2 weeks in person in Detroit as an entire cohort. And over those 2 weeks, they do focus on professional soft skills, hard skills. They're learning how to build websites. They're learning how to work in an office environment. They're learning project management skills. So we put them immediately through a ton of training and development before they start their jobs. And then once they start, over the course of the 2 years, we have at least quarterly professional development and networking events. And then another shorter term type training, like training camp for second year fellows that's focused on leadership development, managing up, down, and sideways, how to build a diverse team, how to negotiate a contract, all kinds of things like that. So yes, a ton of professional development that we invest in these fellows to help accelerate their careers and make sure that they're well positioned to be effective founders.
I can't overestimate how important it is, like the basic foundational skills of being a professional, being a professional in any industry. I started my career, so my first job was really teaching scuba diving, and I traveled the world for a whole bunch of years teaching scuba diving. But after that, after I took off my board shorts and laid my BCD down to rest, I got a job at McKinsey, which is a global consulting company, and they're known for, I guess, a lot of professional stuff, really, but for producing people that have a high level of professional work ethic and whatever else. And when I look back at what I learned, it really is how do you write an email where the person doesn't have to come back to you 10 times with additional questions, thinking through, what's this person likely to ask? What else might they want to know? What are the implications? What's the so what of what I'm saying, right? Distilling down everything into kind of concise communication that can be digested, and then a decision can be made on the back of it. And that's just, I see a lot of people come to our organization, and I deal with a lot of other organizations in our business. And I just see how many people can't just lack that basic training. So I'm excited that somebody in our world is doing that, even if people aren't coming from, like other professional backgrounds, because not everybody can, obviously. Tell me a little bit. You guys focus a lot on diversity, equity, and inclusion. To somebody that doesn't know what that is, let's talk about it. But I also want to know, like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why does it benefit a business owner or a leadership team or anybody in the organization to have diversity of thought, diversity of from a demographic perspective? And like, who cares? Why does it benefit you in the end as a business owner?
Yeah, great question. And I'll start with the why and then dive into VFA's approach. So DEI, having a diverse team is so important. There's been so many studies that have come out over the last few years that show that the more diverse a team is, the more profitable they're likely to become. The more companies that have a board that have women on it are far more likely to be more successful and be more profitable. So if you're looking at your bottom line, this is just an important thing to do. And the reason why is because you have people who are coming from different perspectives and can look at different sides of the issue or call out problems in advance before they become actual real problems. You also have people who can come to the table and say, as a potential customer who comes from this background and walk of life, this is what's going to be attractive to me. And so you start to see really unique teams that can come together and think through creatively issues, tackle them in advance, and be more market savvy. So that's the business case. And if you want, I'm happy to send over all the studies and data if you want the exact numbers.
But in essence, what that means is you're able to like make decisions. You make better decisions when you have more diverse perspectives, and that's on life, on or national origin, on whatever it is. Like, you have better decision-making power. And you might pivot more appropriately from a marketing and sales perspective, from an operations perspective, if you have more diversity, women, people of color, any other gender diversity, but also sexual orientation, anything else, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a business, if you're a business owner and you're looking at why I should invest in DEI strategies and make this a priority, that's it. It's affecting your bottom line. You're likely to be more successful. You're going to have creative problem solvers on your team just by nature of the life that they have walked in, their lived experience. And then thinking about economic development as a community that is putting together an entrepreneurial ecosystem, DEI is really, really important because it's the tide that raises all boats. So if you can create a space and open doors for more people who have historically not been able to access, the resources needed to be a founder and launch a successful business, if you're able to open those doors and bring more people to the table to start a business and be successful in their own right, they're going to create jobs. They're creating generational wealth. They're solving for a lot of these problems. So at a micro level, as a company, it's really important. But as a community that's investing in this, being able to focus on DEI and creating those opportunities is good for the good
create a more robust, fruitful environment in its entirety. I love it. So what do people, if a business owner says, I like the idea of more profit, I like the idea of greater ideas and iterations and pivoting faster and smarter. I like the idea of my company being more successful, but I don't have any idea how to hire a more diverse talent pool, more colleagues that don't look quite like me or the people sitting around the table right now. How do they do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one, come to VFA, right?
Love that.
Come hire one of our fellows. So VFA has one of our big pillars is being an on-ramp for entrepreneurship for people from all walks of life. So our big focus, DEI and diversity, is a huge focus for us. We want our fellows to be as diverse as the companies we serve and vice versa. So we want to recruit fellows from, all different backgrounds, all different colors, all different walks of life, and give them an opportunity to have that experience. So one, seek out organizations that are mission aligned and are really focused on DEI. So if it's not, if you don't need early career talent and VFA is not the right fit, find another organization like the Oklahomans Business Equality Program to look at, what are other companies doing to hire? Where are there other pools of candidates to hire from? I think something that's also really important is don't just focus on getting those people in the door. You need to be intentional about keeping them there and the retention strategies. So thinking a lot about how do I onboard somebody to give them a sense of belonging and psychological safety from the very beginning. We want people to come in and feel like they can ask questions, that they can dive right in, that they feel connected to the work, and that they're safe to be who they are, and to take risks, because that's really important too. And people are going to come at that from different places. So thinking about not just, we want to hire people who are Black, we want to hire women, we want to hire, whoever, but also making sure that your retention strategies are aligned. There's a lot of really great consultants out there that can help with it. If you don't want to, I don't recommend just like doing it on your own without any knowledge. There's lots of resources out there. I personally am happy to have a conversation if you want.
Is it best to have like a strategy going into it before you just start hiring people that are diverse, or should we just be hiring people? I mean, in my case, I just want to hire a new property manager, for example. I'm open to the idea of that person being of any walk of life. Do I need a strategy to kind of define that role? I also want that person to be upwardly mobile in our organization, so that eventually that person is sitting at the leadership table, right? And we like to move people up within the organization instead of hiring, leadership roles from the outside. How do I just do that? I can do it through VFA. I can do it through EBA. But I mean, do I need a strategy? Do you think I'm foolish for just going out and hiring, or do I need to kind of put pen to paper and really, put some thought into how it's going to happen?
I personally think having a strategy is really important. I don't think it has to be as in-depth. I love that you're coming at it with really great intention. But something to start considering is like, as a really like a rapidly growing company and you're creating more opportunity for more people, this is a culture thing. And culture is, there's strategy that goes into culture. So making sure that you're looking at, who are we as an organization? How are we supporting the individuals that work here in their movement forward? And how are we making sure that it's equitable across the board? And so I don't think it needs to be like a fully thought out perfect strategy to jump in, but an ongoing conversation that you keep coming back to make sure that like, are we on the right track forward? Are we doing the right things to make sure that movement upward is accessible and equitable across the board? Where can we improve and continue to make sure that we have a culture that aligns with our vision?
It's not enough to have to be on the lookout for hiring a specific person if there's not a support infrastructure that says this person or this group of people needs a couple of things to feel comfortable and safe and whatever, and that doesn't exist in your organization. All of a sudden it's a leaky bucket and they're leaving because you're actually not a good fit. So I get it. The culture and the strategy helps support the initial intention of hiring a more diverse talent pool.
Right.
Let me ask you this. So in our organization, one group of people that we love to employ are people that have tried their hand at entrepreneurship and have failed. And I'll tell you why. It's because they have all of the skills that you need to be an entrepreneur, and something went wrong. The idea wasn't right. The execution wasn't right, but they have the leadership skills oftentimes. They have the ownership skills oftentimes. They know what it's like to have grit and to get through tough times. They know how to be lean. They know a whole bunch of stuff, but something just didn't work out. In the VFA ecosystem where you're placing fellows, my fear would be that they stay for a year and then leave and then they go start their own business, which is fine. We recognize that that's always the case, and we want a more robust ecosystem. And if that one of those people, for example, in our business goes and starts the best HVAC business in Tulsa, I would go, great. That's a great service provider for us. If they're doing it the right way and with great technology, we'd love to utilize them. But how do some companies think through, or how do some of your clients think through, employing a fellow and keeping them on for a decade, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that our fellows fall on different sides of the spectrum with how quickly they want to be a founder, or even if they want to be a founder. So a lot of our fellows come in and say, I want to work for a startup. I want to be a leader at a startup.
Yeah.
Not necessarily founding their own company. Maybe they've done that in the past. Maybe they started a student organization while they were in college and operated in that space. And so they come into, their company that they were hired on by, and they're able to accelerate into a leadership position and move things forward that way. So we do have a lot of fellows that fall on different sides of the spectrum. For example, we have a fellow here. His name is Joe. He works for GetWit. He's a second-year fellow, and they have given him so much responsibility. He feels really at home there. And last I heard, he has no intention of leaving. Like, keep promoting him. They keep him on taking on new responsibilities and doing really great things where he's able to have an impact that he wants to have and do it at an already existing organization. And so there's, you have fellows that fall on different sides of the spectrum. So what I would recommend is just have a conversation with that fellow, see what they need to feel like they're being successful in their own right with with that organization. And just, again, it's coming back to like those retention strategies. Like, what are you doing to retain really great hires? And a lot of times that looks like autonomy, given, responsibility where they feel like they're making an impact and making a difference. A lot of fellows feel like they can do that without having to go and start their own thing. Yeah.
Entrepreneurial people within larger organizations have huge impacts. I mean, obviously all the people at Google that have started different, the person that, I think YouTube's a bad example because I bought that business, but some of the people that started, Google Docs and these intrepid kind of forward thinking folks were employees at an organization and just felt that entrepreneurial spirit and the drive to go kind of create something that's better. So not everybody needs to be putting their own capital at risk in order to feel like, a real entrepreneurial spirit. Among the fellows that you see as most successful in the organizations that, where they're placed, what are some similarities or some characteristics that you see that maybe aid with with their success or just correlated with their success somehow?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I immediately, again, think of Joe at GetWet, a lot of autonomy, a lot of trusting him to take on projects and responsibility where he can have and drive impact. So like he's really involved with the 19-day studio that they're launching, which is so cool. So it's very aligned with like, his personal goals and what he wants to accomplish. He's learning all the time. He has access to leadership. So he's learning directly from, Jacob and the leadership team. So that's what I would say are like some of the consistent features is the access to leadership for that mentorship type experience, a lot of autonomy and that ability to do the work that feels impactful. And a lot of that is going to come from really solid communication. Because sometimes when you're like that young and you're early in your career, you don't know where the work that you're doing is important or not, has an impact. So hearing from leadership about why the work that you're doing matters can go a really, really long way. So those are probably the key things I would.
I mean, Josh sounds amazing. Taking on responsibility, grabbing the bull by the horns, kind of asking for more when those are all amazing things. Sometimes, again, with entrepreneurship, it's just about grit. I mean, it's about saying, I own this problem. I'm going to solve this problem come hell or high water. And, sometimes that's busting down a bunch of doors. I say in our business, like, there are towns in Oklahoma where you need to turn on water with a paper form and a check and you take it into the office and they will not accept anything over the phone or a credit card or anything else. And I say to my team, like, you cannot drive to that town every time you want to turn on some water. It's ridiculous. So go in there with a basket of goodies, a box of donuts, or whatever to sweeten this situation, to find a solution for this one little problem that we have. That really turns out to be a thorn in the side, but like somebody needs to think through the solution. And if Zhao is just thinking through the solution and doesn't rely on Jacob or on Joey to drive the solution downward, that's an entrepreneur in your organization, which I love. Some big VFA wins. I mean, anything from the 2021 class that you're proud of that you think our listeners should hear? Actually, before we talk about that, 19 days, we should do a plug for 19 days because that's a venture studio that Jacob and Joey started. I think I've got Joey coming on the podcast at some point in the next little bit. We're investors in that in 19 days. So I was super excited that thing started. The first opportunity that they're really capturing is something related to banking and the kind of general ecosystem of banking and document storage. Every time you have to, apply for a new loan, you've got to put together 1,000 documents. And so there's not really a repository where all this works and makes it easy facilitates the process. I don't really know it, but Joey's going to talk to us about it when he comes on shortly. But I'm happy to hear that venture studio is pushing along and doing well. But I asked you another question and now I forgot what it was.
Wins for the 2021 cohort. So thinking nationally about VFA and some of our wins. For one, VFA launched in Tulsa in 2021. So like, that's a win.
Huge thanks to you for that. We're so happy that you're here.
Yeah, so that led me to be here. So that's really exciting. We were able to get 10 fellows in Tulsa, which is the most we've gotten for a brand new VFA city. So 2021 was an exciting year for VFA just in our expansion efforts and, launching in a whole new market. So super exciting about that. We had a number of really great companies by fellow founders who went through our own accelerator, and they're doing some really great work. There's one called Athletic, who they were founded by some fellows a few years ago. They went through our accelerator. They're now in Techstars. They're just doing really really amazing work and blowing up like crazy. They've raised a bunch of money. So yeah, we've got some really great fellow founders who are doing great work with starting their own businesses and using VFA as a launch pad to make that happen. And then locally thinking about Tulsa and the work that we're doing here. I mean, we were able to host our annual alumni reunion, our RISE retreat, which is a DEI leadership conference for some of our fellows who lead affiliation groups. And then Redux, which is that second year professional development intensive for second year fellows, hosted all of that in Tulsa in May. So we had about 200 VFA folks come to town for about a week, experience Tulsa, where, they'd never been here before, connect with folks like, Mike Bosch and Build in Tulsa and Act Tulsa and Dom. And it was a really amazing experience. So first year getting to do some in-person things after COVID, getting to do them in Tulsa, which was just amazing for me to see. So lots of wins for sure.
So much of, growing the entrepreneurial ecosystem just seems to be getting more publicity for Tulsa. People don't know where Tulsa is. So when somebody says, hey, I need to recruit top talent for this position and somebody's never heard of Tulsa, it's really difficult to recruit them. But if they've heard of Tulsa, or they maybe have been here through a VFA program or through one of Mike Bosch's programs he calls them attenterns. That's their internship program. Love that. The attenterns, then, they're just top of mind. Brand recognition is, leads them to an easier decision to actually be here. So I love that. Absolutely. How has Mike been helpful to VFA in general through Attento, GKFF? Tell us a little bit about that ecosystem and how they've all been helpful.
Yeah. How hasn't Mike not been helpful? I mean, he was like a huge champion for bringing VFA to Tulsa, which was super exciting. I mean, he small scale stuff, he led the leadership training for our Redux this year. And I mean, our fellows just ate it up. They loved his story. They loved hearing from him. He's hired a fellow, Christy Brannon, who's there, and she's crushing it. Cool. And then Attento in general, I mean, just constantly making introductions, pulling our fellows into the ecosystem. So, their first Friday art crawl event that they host in their office, my fellows are always there, doing all of the Attento events. I mean, Mike has really led the way in opening a lot of doors and making connections. And pulling VFA into the entrepreneurial ecosystem so that we can have pathways forward for our fellows when they decide to, jump into being founders, find the resources that they need, and find community. Just so important.
Who else in our community here in Tulsa has been helpful?
Yeah. Build in Tulsa is another really stellar organization. They are, if you're not familiar, Build in Tulsa is really focusing on underrepresented founders, specifically from the Black and Brown communities. So they are doing a ton of work to support a lot of our fellows, and they've had conversations with fellows that are interested in starting a business and bringing them to Tulsa and plugging them in with resources here. The Act Tulsa Accelerator, which falls under the Build in Tulsa umbrella, Dominic Artis, who leads that and was the founder of Act House. Again, just an incredible resource and connector and champion of all things VFA. In general, George Kaiser Family Foundation, who's our primary funder, but also just more than that, really focusing on how do we create community that brings people in and makes them feel at home and like they can put down roots here and grow. The Schusterman Family Foundation is another amazing funder, and same thing, really just wanting to create community and make sure that this is a place where our fellows can come in, be founders, be successful, and put down roots here. So, I mean, and I'm sure I've missed some folks, but these are the people that I lean on. This is my team,
Seems like a super welcoming and supporting community. So I'm happy that that's the case. Dominic, I try to get Dominic on the podcast. He's out studying Arabic at Middlebury for the summer, the intensive, what do they call the Middlebury College program? The immersive language program. I thought that was awesome. Oh, he did Hebrew, I think, last summer. So he's doing Arabic this summer.
That's awesome.
Immediately I saw that and I was like, I emailed my wife. I was like, I've got to get to Middlebury to get back to my Arabic studies,
That's so cool.
Speaking a beautiful language. That's awesome. It's great to hear that the community is welcome and receptive to this idea of having VFA in town and actively promoting it. So it's, I just love to hear that. So much great stuff happening in Tulsa that we want to get out there to the world. People understand that we're doing fun stuff and we are actively, trying to nurture the entrepreneurial community because it helps all of us live better lives. What are you focusing on when you're not working on VFA stuff? What are you focusing on? What are you reading? What podcasts are you ingesting? What generally inspires you towards more action and more creativity?
Yeah, really good question. So we were talking about this a little bit. I have a 19-month-old daughter who takes up all of my other free time, and then an 8-week-old puppy that if I didn't have any additional free time, he takes up the rest of it. So a lot of time spent on the kiddos.
Yep.
And then I just started reading Adam Grant's Give and Take. It's one of Mike Bosch's recommendations. Amazing book, looking at how to be effectively altruistic, making sure that you are able to give back to the community in a really strategic way that doesn't burn you out. And also, sets you up for success. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's really wonderful. And then I personally am super focused on DEI work and how I can better build my own skills. As someone who never considered herself a founder or thought that I would be personally an entrepreneur and really focus on being like a part of the ESO entrepreneurial support organization side. I'm starting to have some ideas around something I could launch in the DEI space. And so I've been spending a lot of evenings doing some research and learning more about how to start my own business. So
and hire a VFA fellow to help you out.
Hire a VFA fellow. So that's really what I've been focusing a lot of my time on, for sure.
I love it. It's hard when you have a 19-month-old. And as I was telling you, I've got 3-year-old twin girls and another baby girl. That's like 15 months. It's hard to find time alone. It often happens at 7 or 7:30 or 8 when your kids are asleep, but then you're exhausted. The day has just taken its toll. I find that early morning is the best time to get things done before your kids wake up. These days, I was also telling you, I just got back from Greece, so my kids are on like a little bit of a funny schedule. So they're up at 3:30 in the morning because they're jet lagged. They're like 3:30 to 4:30. Somebody has to help them with food and then get settled back into bed so that we can all get a couple more hours of shut eye. But I'm up at 5:30 anyway, so it's a tough transition.
Oh, no.
Tough transition for sure.
Rough. That's rough. I feel like we're finally out of the weeds or out of the woods with the like late or middle of the night wake ups, but traveling and adjusting, that's rough.
The sleep regressions come at some point too. Give and Take, Why Helping Others Drives Our Success. That's Adam Grant. Love that. I'm going to pick that up. I hope Mike has a copy of that I can steal.
Think he's got several.
He's got hopefully he'll lend me one. Mandi, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate your perspective on entrepreneurship, our environment of entrepreneurship and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Where can people learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, great question. Ventureforamerica.org is our website. You can also reach me anytime. Feel free to email at Mandi, MANDI, at ventureforamerica.org. I'm happy to sit down and chat about what we do and how we can collaborate. Those are the easiest way to figure out who we are as an organization and how to get in touch. Awesome.
Mandi's the director of Tulsa for Venture for America. She's been in Tulsa since 2020. We're so happy to have her here. Thank you for being on the show. You and I have a conversation right after this about Keyrenter getting involved with some VFA fellows. So thank you for being on. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.